gap analysis?
Well, actually, this is going to be pretty short. I know that it's a lot of documents, but you've seen the delivery targets before. We've talked about this several times. The only thing that is different is that you have the subgroups. So when Ms. Spalding brings it up, we'll go to just the district one. Hang on. And when you look at the district one, what I tried to do for you is I've highlighted in yellow, that should be our goal. And then in red shows you where we are at. You've seen this before. And then if you scroll down, Ms. Spalding, you'll see all these different subgroups. And it's the exact same thing. It shows you this is where we need to be, this is where we are. So it breaks it down. This is for all 4 elementaries together. And the reason we're looking at this again is because, I'll just be honest, this is the compliance with the law. We have to do this before February 1st. And so we're doing this all in one report so that you meet your obligations as a board to say, here are the goals, we're accepting these goals. Site-based councils have had to do this by October 1st. So they give board members a little bit more time to look at this, and we bring it to the board. And
I have a question. Now that 52 that you have up there, is that an average of something?
that is the percent of kids that are reaching proficiency.
Okay. And
It's
42.9.
that proficient or distinguished.
But I'll go down to, just use that African American right there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, in 2013 and 20.
Where are you on the graph?
All right, under 2013, 14, yeah.
Okay.
So
it's showing this is where we are as a district. This is the average of the state. So you can kind of compare with the state. And then this is where we want to be. This is where we're at right now. So you can see for this past testing cycle, because of K-Prep, because we're talking about last year in May, what the kids did, you can see that we were above the state average significantly. But we want to take a significant jump because you want to close your gap. So by 2017, we want that gap to narrow.
well, and then I guess what I'm saying is, then you would like to see that 52 in every category up and down through there, not just, but or maybe non-Hispanic. Because see, like they're already at 52, aren't they?
Well, each group has a goal.
Right.
So you're right, they're at 52, and so by the time we get to the end, you want that gap to narrow between all of the different subgroups.
So you want every group is close to that 52.
Exactly. Okay, and then
Let me get this straight.
Okay.
So what you're saying is just in that particular group, the white, non-Hispanic, in this school year, 2013-2014, our goal is to reach 60.6.
correct.
The state's goal is to reach 57.8.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So we're trying to achieve higher than what the state's trying to achieve. I mean, that's our goal. So
Right.
that's how you reach this thing.
That is
So
correct.
2014-15. Now, last year, our goal was 55.7, and
Correct.
we reached 52.7.
Correct. We
Okay.
didn't reach that delivery target.
Okay.
And so there's no penalty for that right now because you're looking at that long-term goal of 2017. And so the K-Prep vending portion, because you got to look at politically, there is a contract with this vendor. And so this vendor, I think they have a contract into the 2016-17 year. I would say that has something to do with this long-range planning of saying we have from now until then. This was a part of that No Child Left Behind waiver, being able to not for it to go away, because you're still looking at subgroups, but for a way for them to revamp it, to say, all right, we're now going to add student growth in there, because that's important. We want kids to grow every year. We're going to add in the component of college and career readiness for the high school and middle schools. So they've made it more comprehensive, and that's why they were able to get the waiver.
And remember what the commissioner said, 2014 was supposed to be the year every child was proficient. And he said, if I'm looking across the state, we're not there. So that's why the waiver's in place to look at doing this a different way, because,
Well, I think they're finally seeing like the majority of us, and really and truly, what we should be worried about is continuous improvement and not putting a number up there that says you've got to hit that number. Main thing is that every child is continuing to improve.
I agree. And we've not talked about it yet because it's not been a part of that percentage for our accountability scores. But next year, we'll be looking at the new effectiveness system, which is essentially teacher evaluations, principal evaluations, is going to be a part of that number that a school district gets as well.
And that's when? Next
Well,
school year?
they say next school year, we have to have, the board will have to approve the new evaluation system by December of next year. Well, I guess it's this year, but next school year. Now, if we don't do that before May of this year, then we'll have to run 2 evaluation systems. So I'll use Mr. Abel as an example. If he has 17 teachers that are on, that he's assigned, because he has more than that in his building, but let's say that's his pool of teachers he has to evaluate. He would have to do the current system that he's doing now traditionally, plus he will have to do the PGES, that Professional Growth and Effectiveness System, evaluation system. And so if we don't want them, I'm kind of off topic, but it kind of goes together. If we want to look at them not running dual systems, then we're going to have something in place by May. But they've not released what that summative form is going to look like for teachers yet. And so I think we have to be cautious about when the State Department, the State Board has not approved that yet, and the timeline that we are looking at. So I would say the end of February, I'll be talking to you, or Ms. Sasha will be talking to you about what is our timeline that we want to try to get in. Right now we know it's December of 2014 for sure. We have to do something.
You always confuse me when you start saying state regulator or like school board regulator. It's always confusing. It's always confusing.
If you want to scroll down to the middle school, just so that we can look at the middle school numbers. So this is the same report, but with your 2 middle schools together. And then your high school will be right after that. And then in your packet, what I've also done for you is then I divided it up by each school. So that if you wanted to look at Calvary, Lebanon Elementary, and you have a tab with all of those schools separately.
For fear of being more confused, I'm not really.
Okay.
I understand how to read this now. What does this mean, non-duplicated? It's on every page. I saw that today when I was looking.
That's a very
What does that mean?
That's a very good question. Under the old No Child Left Behind system, if let's say, for example, that there was a student who was African American, disability, and free and reduced lunch, that student would count in 3 different subgroups. And so now what they do is a student is a student.
Okay.
You're going to be counted regardless of what subgroup you fall into. A student is a student.
Okay.
So they just put all the subgroups together to get that gap score on the school report cards.
That turned out real well.
I'm glad I didn't confuse you again.
Would that be the same thing as not counting the students more than one time? Yeah.
You got it.
Non-typically.
I hope because a year or so ago or more, we've talked about subgroups and the numbers weren't really accurate because they were counted here, they were counted there, and they were counted
It
there.
was, you're exactly right. And that was a flaw that they saw in the system. And so I think that was a good change that they moved to in this new evaluation with Senate Bill 1. Any more questions on the gap report? I think I'm next on the agenda
Yeah,
as
you
well,
can
so I'll
continue.
just continue to confuse you, right? All right, the next item that we have, and I have Mr. Abel here with me so that if you have questions, he's going to be able to help answer. But if you recall, the last board meeting, I presented to you the elementary and middle school's data that came from MAP, okay? That measures the academic performance test that we'll give 3 times this year. And we promised you that the high school had learning check data that they had given before Christmas and that we would bring that back to you. So this is what you see. Mr. Abel tried to do the same coding as what we did for the MAP. He used the green for proficiency. And this is teacher assessments, okay? They've developed these assessments to the best judgment of how they would correlate either to ACT, end of course assessment, whatever they were trying to gauge in their course.
And what we asked is there'd be about 70 questions. They'd be designed in the same format and hopefully the same rigor of either the ACT or the COSA, depending on which area they were in.
And so then the yellow was those borderline students. They might have been slightly above, they might have been slightly below, but those were kids that they felt not quite to that proficiency level. And then the red is well below what we would consider probably novice. And again, this is teacher assessment. This is a teacher rubric. They determine the cut points, okay? So remember that. But it's really great that they have done this and that they're looking at those kids individually so that they can provide interventions to them. If you'll notice that there are certain courses bolded, I thought that would help you to realize that if I'm an English 2 student, a sophomore, I'm going to be taking the end of course assessment. So that's a very important, not that the other ones aren't important, but that's kind of that building block up until that point. I'm going to take an end of course assessment in English 2. Algebra 2 is another big course because I'm going to be taking an end of course assessment. A lot of those kids are also going to be taking ACT. I use my son for an example. He's a junior. He'll take ACT in March and I take that back. He's not in Algebra 2. He took his last year.
U.S. history.
But U.S. history, he'll do an end of course in U.S. history. Okay? So some of these kids could be taking multiple high stakes assessment for not only themselves, because ACT is that ticket to kind of help them if they're going to get scholarship applications and even admittance to college. And then you'll see the science, biology is another end of course assessment year. And there's your U.S. history. So that's why those are bolded. We'll let you kind of process that and direct questions towards Mr. Abel. And myself.
I was really excited to see that Mr. Abel had data from all of his courses, and I know that he is looking at also doing some math assessment
I would definitely like that for the freshmen. I feel like we get some good data from the plan for our sophomores. The ACT gives us some good feedback for our juniors. But to help prepare them for that, I think the plan, or the map data would be good. And the way it aligns with the Compass right now can give those kids some resources they don't currently have. The biggest concern with high school is just getting kids in front of the computers. We don't have the computer space right now that I would like to have. That's something in the strategic plan as far as the high school that we would like to look at as far as a lab or some way to be able to get more students in front of those computers throughout the day so we could take advantage of that. Especially for testing, with the ACT, with some of the interventions we can do for those. There's an ACT prep and some other things. The online ACT work keys that we're going to be doing. There's going to be much more online testing as the state goes forward too, and I think that would help with a lot of that also.
When you talk about online testing, you're talking about online testing in the school.
Yes, sir. Some of it is state required.
So we are required by the state to test online in certain subjects.
Not all of it is mandated online right now. It is
Okay.
an option for now, but it is more and more going to be required online.
Okay.
And we do have some access for testing to go to the ATC to help to get with their labs. But on a daily basis, it's just not as practical for teachers to go up the hill, get kids situated. By the time they get them started, it's about time to come back down the hill, go back to the regular classes. So that's just some of the things we're looking at right now.
What's the advantage of taking the test online as opposed to not taking it online?
Immediate feedback. And for the ACT, it can be individualized. We can take it pen and paper, and we can group students based on their score. So you guys scored in a 15 to 20 range. Here are some general skills that indicates to us you need work on. A test is just so much more individualized to their needs and what problems they missed, as far as being able to pinpoint what skills and where their deficiencies might be.
The online test gives you those results back.
Yes, sir.
No, the ACT prep.
Yes,
Gives
correct.
us
Oh,
that.
okay.
And it gives them a tutorial, kind of like with the map data and Compass, it gives them a tutorial geared toward what their scores and what questions they missed as well. Much more individualized.
One reason for those end-of-course assessments being on the computer, if you recall, part of the end-of-course assessment move is that high schools had to move towards that counting 20% of a student's grade. So if I'm a student and I'm taking U.S. history, 20% of my grade is going to come from that end-of-course assessment. And if you take that in the last 15 days of school, then how are you going to get those results back quick enough so that child is held to to high expectations, and that to be a part of their score for that grade?
Makes
in that
sense.
class?
I mean, the reason I ask is, I would like to, we're always talking about data, this and that, we've got proof that this happens and this happens. I know we don't have this, but I would really like to see, because I remember, and Bernard and Delane both remember, back in the early last 10 years, 2001, 2, we were going into smart boards, and then smart boards were the thing, and every room needed a smart board. And I remember my first time on the school board talking about it, and I don't think we had but maybe 10, maybe one in each school, and then maybe an extra one somewhere else, and that sort of thing. And it was told to us how important it was and it was a big, huge push to put smart boards in every room. I would like to know, what has it done for us? Putting the smart boards in the room. How do you track that? When you talk about technology and needing more computers and that sort of thing, how do you track how well the student's doing with technology versus without the technology? You know what I'm saying?
I think that's good. That's very good questions, because it's not always just about a number. But I do think that could be a part of your strategic plan about saying, well, what is it in Marion County that we deem makes us a successful school district? It's not just about a K-Prep score. It may not be just about this, but what is the pieces of data that we want to shoot for in 3 years or 5 years that show that we're a successful school district? So that could be, you know, you could collect data from learning logs about how often you go in and you see students utilizing the smartboard, because it's not just about teachers utilizing the smartboard.
Right.
And if you decide that that's something that's important to you, then we can make that a part of the learning log and collect data and say, out of 100 classrooms that we were in, this number was using the smartboard. You know, if that's what you decide is.
You know, I know technology is more convenient. I mean, there's no two ways about it. And our students are getting more involved in it all the time. Some of them probably have more technology than we have, you know. But it's, you know,
Are they getting up in front of them smart boards, and are they showing you
Yeah.
they understand what you're teaching?
Are they interacting right and using
Yeah,
it?
I think the smart boards being used for whole group or to enhance whole group instruction for a teacher, whether it's lecture, whether it's showing diagrams or models or things. I think you can see evidence of that by the number of students we have who are scoring into proficient and distinguished level already on ACT and end of course. I think what other groups who may not be scoring there, I think that's where the increased access to the one-on-one help or the small computers would help those students more in that regard. I think it is the smart boards have had a great impact on, you know, just the quality of instruction that teachers have been able to provide. It has met the needs of a large number of our students. It's just having more for those other students who aren't getting there, who are well below. They can kind of meet them at the level they're at and provide them, you know, interventions at that level is where I see it would be beneficial.
Well, I see Mr. Farmer back there, and he's been in this district probably as long as anybody in the room almost. As far as being in the building, do you feel like all the smart boards are being used to the best of the abilities?
There's so many new and innovative things that are coming out that are addition to that you can buy into, etc. One of those schools, without releasing confidentiality today, the classrooms that we went into was doing a lesson on Martin Luther King and I Dream and the speech, and this was a very early age classroom. But they were using that and bringing that speech alive, you know, where a child would never be able to visualize this, but the teacher brought it alive, and as they continued another part of the activity, they were listening and they were counting how many times did they hear, "I have a dream." And then the teacher was taking it one step farther and let's write your dreams down on the piece of paper. So to me, that was an incredible lesson today, and it has really stuck with me of thinking that a first grade classroom is using a smart board like this and they're interacting with this, whereas they would have never been exposed. What I guess I didn't ask the question right. Do you think our teachers are prepared, all of them, to use those smart boards that we spent the money for, and do you think they're being used in the classroom in an efficient manner? I mean, I made sure that every teacher was very comfortable with the usage through PD, through other teachers demonstrating and showing teachers what to do. They're all, you know, equipped to deal with the smart board. I see some great things going on, and I encourage it, but it can't be just a tool for teachers. It's got to be a tool for students. And I feel like that is where we can even make a bigger stride.